Hello, everybody, and welcome to 3 o'clock with SOC. Thank you so much for being with us today. We're going to have a really interesting presentation and work session. So stay with us, and you can learn how to be making community maps and submit them so that we can promote fair representation in political districts in Wisconsin. But first, let me make sure we can get our Spanish speakers onto the interpretation line. So, hola, buenas tardes. Gracias por estar aquí con nosotros en otro foro comunitario con SOC. Como siempre, ustedes pueden escuchar esta información en español a través de nuestra línea de interpretación. Y el número que hay que marcar aparece en la pantalla ahora. Hay que marcar 646-749-3122. Y luego hay que introducir el código de acceso, cual es 779-328-221. So thank you for letting me make sure people have access to that. And if there are any questions throughout the time, please, we are promoting engagement today. We want you to be commenting your thoughts. We're going to be talking about our neighborhoods, our community, and you all are the experts in that area. So we'll be asking you for examples of important locations, and we'll go into even more what we'll be talking about. And we're really thankful to Carlene for being with us. We'll let her introduce herself, but she's been on a number of times here at SOC to talk about redistricting and fair maps. And so we're really thankful to have you on again to lead us through this important community mapping session that we'll have.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate being asked back and to be able to work with you still, Gabe. And also want to just shout out SOC for joining the coalition. The Fair Maps Coalition is a group of good government, nonprofit, nonpartisan groups that really want to see a functioning democracy. And we're starting right here in Wisconsin. So thanks for that. That's a show of confidence and endorsement in the work that we're doing, and we appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we're going to start today with kind of a redistricting 101 so people can understand why we are asking to create these community maps. And just in general, we really want these community maps to be submitted so we can show the government, the legislature, that these are communities that are cohesive, that shouldn't be broken up or, packed or cracked, like we'll go into with your presentation. And you all are, like I said, the viewers that are watching now who live in your neighborhoods, you all are the experts about, what you feel your cohesive community is.
Exactly. So I can start anytime. Just let me know. Should I just go ahead and do that now?
Yeah. Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah. I'm going to make sure I know how to do that. So sharing my screen, share screen.
Yeah, and as you do that, again, I just want to remind folks that we would love to have your engagement in the comments. So any questions, clarifications, whatever throughout the time, please feel free to engage in the comment section. So I see a presentation here, and I will have us off the screen, but they'll still be able to hear us, okay?
Okay, that's perfect. So I call this the Maps Mess in Wisconsin because it is indeed a big mess. These are the members of the Fair Maps Coalition lead team. So the Fair Elections Project, Law Forward, who handles legal stuff, the Democracy Campaign, League of Women Voters, Voces de la Frontera, the Farmers Union, Common Cause, National Redistricting Foundation, All Voting is Local, and Wisconsin Conservation Voices and Native Vote. So these groups meet twice a month to really guide the work that I do. Our mission is to advocate for and enact in law and practice an independent, nonpartisan redistricting method in Wisconsin, and to educate and engage the public in the process of adopting and implementing nonpartisan maps. So what is redistricting? It's when new electoral districts are created. It happens all across the United States after the decennial census. So if these were 50 wards, we don't call them precincts in Wisconsin, and 60% of them, or 60 of the blocks, were yellow voters, and 40 of the blocks, 40%, were green voters that needed to be divided into 5 precincts, then or 5 districts, there would be 10 wards in each district. This would be proportionate representation. In other words, the greens would have 3 districts and 2 districts, and the yellows would have 3. There are 2 ways to do that for this map, the long skinny ones here, but people don't live in rows, so it's more likely that they would be drawn differently, but still reflecting 3 yellows and 2 greens. Gerrymandering happens when there is disproportionate representation. So these very compact, very convenient rectangles give the yellows all 5 districts because of the way they are drawn. The other map here on the right side is a lot more like what happens in Wisconsin. So Wisconsin is like 50.44% Democratic and 49.56% Republican. But the Republicans control the legislature in spite of the fact that they are just slightly less numbers in the population. But they don't just control it by a little bit, they control it by a lot because the districts are drawn in very disproportionate ways, giving them an advantage that is disproportionate to the numbers in the electorate. Now, it happens on both sides. Democrats do this too, just not in the state of Wisconsin. In Maryland, they've done this. Democrats have. In Illinois, they've done it. In Wisconsin, it's the Republicans. So I'm going to show this video that really talks about that packing and cracking. It's just a little less than 2 minutes long, but it shows how this happens better than anything. Whoops, maybe I'm not going to show it. Maybe I don't have it linked. Well, we'll have to go back to that, and I'll make sure that you have a chance to see this video because it is just less than 2 minutes long, and it does give a really good explanation of what happens when either party, and it does show either party, the pennies or the dimes, gerrymandering.
I can share it on here if you would like.
If you just want to put it in the chat, I didn't link it, so that was kind of dumb. I thought it was linked, but I made a new slideshow, so that's my problem. You can also see in the election results from elections dating back to 2012, the numbers of voters who were Democratic and Republican, and then how they turned out in representation. So this is the voters is the first column, and the representation is the second column. Again, it's not a big deal when things are very close. But and the voting is fairly close, but the representation that it elects is not close at all. And that is the problem that happens with gerrymandering. So what can we do to change that? Well, in Wisconsin, our reality is that the legislature is responsible for electoral maps. Doesn't mean they draw them, but it does mean that they have to approve them. The governor signs them into law or vetoes them. We do not have a ballot initiative here, so we can't take things directly to voters and have them make that change. It has to go through legislation. And so we have resolutions and referendums, and we have things like this. We have public education and awareness, and we have to then in turn contact our legislators and do things to make sure that the system changes. And don't get me wrong, if you ever think that this doesn't have its roots in racism, well, you probably do know this already. There are lots of articles, and these are several of them in the last few years, that point to how racist these practices are. This is all about disempowering people of color from having their needs and interests represented fairly. And, so in Milwaukee, a lot of the representation reflects the population of Milwaukee. The problem is when Milwaukee representatives get to Madison, they're so outnumbered that the things that they would advocate for on your behalf go unaddressed. So these are several articles, if you're interested, that you could read. So back in 2019, the governor put money in the budget for a nonpartisan redistricting process. It was stripped out of the budget by the Joint Finance Committee. So in 2020, by executive order, he created the People's Maps Commission. And the People's Maps Commission had a rigorous process for choosing commissioners. There are 9 commissioners on the People's Maps Commission, 1 from each congressional district except the 4th congressional district, which represents most of the, or all of the city of Milwaukee, or most of the city of Milwaukee, I should say. And Christopher Ford and Benjamin Rangel are both from the 4th congressional district. The governor wanted to have a 9-person commission so that if they chose to vote, there would not be a tie. So there would be someone who's a tiebreaker. He also wanted to make sure that there was at least 1 African American, 1 Latinx, and 1 Native American representative on the commission, and that was achieved. There are 4 women and 5 men coming from all over the state. Christopher Ford, who lives in Whitefish Bay, is the chair. And these are all people doing this because they feel strongly about it as volunteers for the state and volunteers who want to hear from us, the public. And they did. Between October and March, they held hearings in each congressional district. If you're interested in seeing them, they're linked here. And so in those hearings, they heard from redistricting experts and from, took public testimony from people like us. They are continuing to to accept written comments, and their focus right now is on gathering community of interest maps. So who draws the maps? Well, the state legislature, as I said before, is responsible for approving those maps. But this year, they will also, in addition to the people that they hire to create maps, they will have maps from the People's Maps Commission for the congressional districts, state senate and state assembly districts. And those maps will be influenced in large part by us, the residents of the state of Wisconsin, who give input to this process. The People's Maps Commission is operating in an entirely transparent way. Everything is on their website, and all of their meetings are subject to open meetings laws so that they are all online. You can watch them on YouTube Live, or you can watch them afterwards on their YouTube channel. The things that the commission is considering, they are abiding by all parts of the Federal Voting Rights Act, even those that have been set aside by the U.S. Supreme Court. They are trying to make sure that there is population balance between all districts. They are nesting 3 assembly districts in each Senate district, as is mandated by our state's constitution. They are making districts that are contiguous. In other words, they're not separated by any kind of landmass. Sometimes they might have a river or something running through them, but they are contiguous, so they're touching. They're also compact. And they are preserving political boundaries, meaning municipal boundaries, city, village, towns, and counties wherever possible. They're keeping whole counties together, and certainly within counties, the supervisory districts, because places like Milwaukee and Madison and Green Bay and others, the counties are too large in population to all be in the same district, so they do have to split those up. And then they are also considering communities of interest, which means our communities. Once all of those criteria are met, then they are looking at political fairness. So trying to keep the maps as fair as possible in reflecting the state's electorate. In other words, the people who vote in the state, as I showed you back in some of those other charts. If they can create more fairness by slightly moving a few lines, they will do that. But they will not move any lines to make things less fair. That is off of their chart. They weren't even going to consider political, voting patterns at all, except they heard a lot from people like us that they wanted things to be fair. And so they did make this one of their criteria after all of the other considerations have been met. So a community of interest is just what it sounds like. It is a community that has shared interests and concerns, and those will be given consideration by the line drawers. So communities that should be kept whole because of any number of reasons. They can be rural communities, urban communities, suburban communities. I often use my community as an example. I live in a village that has 13 wards. Currently, 5 of those wards are cracked off from the other 8, and they are in a separate assembly district and a separate Senate district. And you might remember I said that there are 3 assembly districts nested inside one assembly district, or maybe I didn't, I should have. They didn't even put the 2 assembly districts that my little village is cracked into the same Senate district. They put us in separate Senate districts as well. So our little community has a very diluted voice when it comes to being able to impact any of the issues that we care about. The People's Maps Commission has contracted with Moon Duchin, who is a mathematician at Tufts University. She and her math lab created Districtor software, which is a free mapping tool that's online. It's being used by several other states as well, including Michigan and Ohio. And it is used for mapping. It's not, you don't have to download an app or anything. It's just online. So you just go on to Districtor and you can create a map. So on the Districtor software, you can also create district maps. That is not what we are doing. That's not what we as the Fair Maps Coalition have been really pushing, because the People's Maps Commission has asked us for community maps. And so we are trying our best to support their work in getting as many people as possible to submit community of interest maps. We are using the 2020 ward data, which comes from the American Communities Survey. So the ACS, American Communities Survey, is information that is sent to the Census Bureau every year, not just the census year, every year, by cities, towns, villages, and counties, to try to keep, things as up to date as possible with the Census Bureau. The Census Bureau, and you remember from filling out the census form last summer, is very, very detailed. This is much more broad brush information. So it's population, it's racial demographics, it's age, but it doesn't really dive deeply into a lot of the other things that the census did. What it does do is give us the numbers of people. And so that's the information that we're using as we create these maps. So here's what's likely to happen next in Wisconsin. There was nonpartisan redistricting legislation introduced in the state legislature in May. So that's a different thing that's going on. The People's Maps Commission gathered information, as I said, through March, and now they're gathering community of interest maps through the end of this month. So the window is about 2 more weeks, and then it will close so that they can get ready for the census numbers that will come back in the middle of August. They're supposed to come back on August 16th. We expect that the Republican-controlled state legislature will create maps very much like they did before. Speaker Voss has made it clear that he is not interested in looking at the People's Maps Commission maps, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't make them. The People's Maps Commission, or the PMC, is going to create these maps through the open process, as I said, with our input and expert guidance, and they will give those maps to the state legislature. We expect that the governor will veto the maps that are drawn by the legislature, and all maps, the People's Maps Commission maps, the Republican state legislators map, and the Democrats will probably create maps as well. Those will all end up in court. And it will be very, very important that we show that we really want a process like the People's Maps Commission is using for the maps that we have for voting for the next 10 years. We want a transparent, open process that uses public input and respects communities of interest. So this is just what I talked about on a timeline for the People's Maps Commission work, the government work, the legal work that's likely to happen. And, depending on what's going on, we may be putting more referendums on the ballot next April. As I said, the governor is likely to veto the maps that are drawn. They'll go to court. And the deadline for new district maps for the state and federal level, in other words, the Congress, is April of 2022, because that's when people who are running for office need to know where the districts are. Some things you can do is sign the petition that says to legislators, we want a nonpartisan process. Again, that's separate from drawing these maps, but it is something else that we feel really strongly about, having a legislative fix to this problem. Creating a nonpartisan process like what the People's Maps Commission is doing that handles this problem once and for all. So we're not coming back again in 10 years and having to, rattle our sabers and say, do this. So that's what I have. This is the People's Maps Commission portal. And I'm going to open that.
I'm sorry, Carlene, to interrupt. Before you go into that, we do have a couple questions in the chat. Okay. So I want to honor those. We have one from Gladys. When will Milwaukee get redistricted? So we're talking at the state level with this timeline. But can you speak to Milwaukee?
Yes, I'm trying to find where you are again. I share my screen and I can't find which tab here is.
Yeah. No worries. We can see you just fine. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Okay. So that's Milwaukee should be redistricted. The city and the county. Mm-hmm. That process should start as soon as the census data comes back. There was an attempt to pick up that entire timeline and move it till after the April 2022 elections. Very, very fortunately, the governor vetoed that bill. So that process should start August 16th. Actually, it could have started already with that, using that American Community Survey data and then tweaking it when the actual census data comes back in August. I know that Milwaukee County has a citizen committee. So I would highly recommend contacting the county about that if you're interested. And I'm not aware of a citizen committee in the city of Milwaukee, but certainly that process should start also and be finished by the end of the year. Mm-hmm. So then those ward maps can go to the state legislature, and the state legislature will have the new ward maps at the municipal level and the supervisory districts at the county level.
Yeah. So then to answer Claudia's second question here, is there a map of what redistricting will look like in Milwaukee? We don't know yet because it hasn't, it has to go through the county and then the city level, like the municipal level. Correct. It will then go through the common council committees and there will be a process that way. So we don't know that answer yet.
What I can tell you is that Marcelia Nicholson was on a call with us a couple months back and said that there is a committee at the county level, and I know that in Dane County, where I live, the committee has called for public input. So that would be something definitely to look out for.
Absolutely. Another question from Dale: what court will be overseeing a legal challenge?
I wish I knew. I have absolutely no idea. One of the things that happened during the Walker administration is that laws were changed so that people could bring a suit in any county they chose, or at any level that they chose. We did have a victory back in May when the Wisconsin Supreme Court unanimously rejected a rules change that said any litigation on maps would go directly to them. They said, no, we are not making that rules change. It doesn't mean that there won't be an attempt by some party to take it directly to them, but I am not a lawyer, so I really don't know that. I do know that that there are, there's legal strategy being developed as we speak. I'm not part of that. I try to stay as up to the date on it as I can, but I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But then at the point where the legislature puts out their maps and then it's vetoed by the governor, in that case, it would go to the Supreme Court. Or that's what's
that's the part that the Supreme Court, the Wisconsin Supreme Court, rejected.
Oh, right.
So
okay.
it will my understanding, and again, I'm not a lawyer, is that will be determined by whomever brings the suit.
Okay.
So if the governor brings it, if the Democrats bring it, if the Republicans bring it, if an outside group brings it. So I mentioned Law Forward, that's part of the coalition. They're definitely preparing for litigation, whether they would bring it first or not, or Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty, who's on the other side of this fight. I don't know what other word to use. It's hard to say. It'll be a race to the courts.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, those were the only questions we had, but people, please continue to ask questions and I will monitor that chat for the questions that may come up. But we can go into the software then. Awesome. That has been created to make it easy for us to create community maps and show the legislature what our communities are.
Right, okay, so I want to show. Okay, so this is the portal on the People's Maps Commission site for submitting maps. So this takes you back to the homepage for the People's Maps Commission. Here is a much more detailed list of the criteria that I mentioned before that the commission is considering. Here's a description of written testimony, a districting plan, or a community of interest map that anybody might submit. So there's a short description there. This is the submission form itself. So you put in anything with an asterisk is required. So whatever you put in needs a title. You don't have to put in a map. You can write something. You can put in a districting plan, a community of interest map, or there are several other softwares that you can use, including Dave's redistricting app or Representable. If you chose to create a map there, you can submit it to the People's Maps Commission as well. You put the web address, and when we do a community of interest map, it will show up right here. A short description of what you're doing. You can tag it. So you could tag it with SOC, you could tag it with South Milwaukee, whatever. Then here, you have to fill in your first name, your email address, and then these two things that say that your submission, your name, and where you live entered in the form. You don't have to put in where you live, by the way. Entered in the form will be shown publicly. Your email address will not be published publicly. So both of those you have to acknowledge. And then you can authorize the staff to contact you. That's a good idea in case they have questions about your map. Then here is some more information about how to draw a map. There are 2 tutorial videos, although Gabe is going to put a much more detailed Wisconsin video in there for the tutorial. Here's where we're going to click in just a moment on this map communities, but I wanted to show you down here that there are lots of maps that have been submitted, and you can look through those. Right here, you can search for different maps, putting in a tag or some other thing, or you can do an advanced search, which I do on a regular basis just to see how many maps are in. And then we're going to click right here on the map communities. So Gabe, I'm going to ask you as we do this, after I show some of the features, to think about some of the points of interest and then, the community. But I'll start out by showing you some of the features on this map. It looks a lot like a Google map. It is not a Google map. It's different than that. It's created just for this software, but there is a search tool here where you can put in a location. Over here in the top right, you can see this blue circle around the pan. That's just a hand that you can grab.
Harleen, we're not seeing the website. We're still seeing the
okay, the public comment portal. Okay, thanks for that.
Yeah, so you just have to share a new tab, I assume.
Right. I think you're exactly right. Thank you for that information.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
And then if we can go slowly through this part so our interpreter can make sure to get all of like kind of the step-by-step, especially since district or the website itself isn't in Spanish.
Right. Okay, so
there it is.
You're seeing it now? Okay, perfect. Okay, so it looks like a Google map, but it's not. This map is created specifically for this software. And up here in the top left, there is a search bar that you can search. I'll just put in Milwaukee, so you'll be able to see how it'll just go straight to Milwaukee. And so gives you a little bit of an idea. I'm going to back out again, so we're seeing the whole state. And bring it over so I can show you some of the other features. So if we go to the top right, this finger that is in the circle is what I'm using now, and it lets me move the map around. The next one is the paintbrush, and this is what we use to actually color in our map. This bar here allows me to make it really small, my paintbrush really small and precise, or really large. I try to keep it as small as possible so that I can be as precise as possible. I can, on this page, I can color in areas of interest, so whole communities, and I can also pinpoint important places. And when I'm doing metropolitan areas or larger urban areas, I try to start with important places that people name as part of their community, because it helps us narrow in on the part of the map that should be colored in as an area of interest or a community. The next feature here is an eraser. So I'm just going to color in a couple of counties here, or a couple of areas. And it's like, oh, dang, I didn't want to do that. So I can go over here to the eraser and I can just erase them. Now you'll see when we enlarge it, I can be much more precise. And then the final thing here with the magnifying glass is not actually for enlarging, it's for being able to look at demographics. So you'll see it, and these are specifically racial demographics. So in Menominee County here, the population is a total of 919. The indigenous population there is 790 people. And when we shade in the map in a minute, you'll see how that shows up. And you can do this for any place on the map. So that's what these features do. I showed you the areas of interest. This is when we color something in, we are going to tell about it here. And when we name a place, it'll come up and we'll be able to tell about the place itself, or the specific, like the SOC the Southside Organizing Center, the specific location, we'll be able to tell about it. The data layers, which is the next tab over, gives us more information. So under boundaries, when I click on this box, you'll see that the map changes and it shows all of the county boundaries. I can unclick that. When I click on tribal nations, it doesn't actually show any boundaries per se, except here in Menominee County, but it does show where the various tribal nations are located, the largest populations of them in the state. Then here under additional boundaries, right now they're all hidden. But when I click on this one for U.S. congressional districts, these are our current congressional districts. In other words, the representatives that we send to Washington, D.C. These are our current state legislative districts, and it says nested, meaning there are 1, 2, 3 assembly districts separated by these light red lines in each Senate district. And this is state Senate, and that's shown all over the state. The next is the school districts in Wisconsin. And finally, the municipalities. So the townships, villages, and cities that are in Wisconsin. And importantly, to turn this off, you have to click hidden again. It's not like the county boundaries where you click and unclick. You do have to go back to hidden. It took me a long time to discover that button. You can also see population by race in the state. So you can, if we just show where the population is in general, it's shaded by where the density of the entire population of the state is. This is a very interesting thing. You can see that Wisconsin is, as it shades over here, is a very white state. And then when you go to the next one, the Hispanic or Latinx population, you can see where the densities of Latinx population are, Black, and so on. And then that's going to take a little bit to change. There's also another thing here. I'm going to go back to total population. That's very interesting. If you wanted to see where, for instance, Latinx and Black folks live throughout the state, that's a coalition of people. And you can go back to this and look at the coalition, in other words, the combined population of those two racial demographics. And that's a little bit different than when you look at each one of them separately. It's very interesting to look at all of the non-white populations and see what that looks like. So I took the population shading off altogether. I'm unclicking those. Now, one thing that you can see here and that we ask that you not do is you can see the election results from several past elections. We are not using this data when we make maps because we don't want partisanship to be part of how maps are drawn. We do want maps to be fair, but just like I shared earlier with the People's Maps Commission is considering that the very last thing after they've met all the other criteria that they've decided. That's the same with what we're asking folks to do when they create their own community of interest maps. Is if you want to see it once you're done drawing your map, great, fine. But please don't use that information to create your map because that's just doing the same thing that the state legislature does. And
right, exactly. I wanted to clarify that is how gerrymandering happens. Is when you use that data to create the districts instead of doing it in a nonpartisan way.
Exactly. And then this last tab, evaluation, allows you to look at the community that you've drawn and how the racial demographics play out as they compare with the state as a whole. So that's an overview of the tool itself. And so I guess what I'd like to do now, if it's okay with you, Gabe, is to have you tell me some places. And I'd like to start with the Southside Organizing Center. Does that work?
Perfect. That sounds great. So you can search us, Layton Boulevard and Scott. Southside Organizing Center.
Gotta spell. Okay. Southside Organizing Center. Okay, they're not.
That's not showing up
here. But that could be because.
Maybe hit X and see if it will clear out everything, and then hit the X there.
Okay, I think you're right. I think that's a really good idea. There you are.
Yeah, still comes up with committee, unfortunately. So there we are. So do you want to explain how you add in a point then?
Yeah, absolutely. So you come over here to the right side where it says new, this little blue box, click on it and go to the place that's been identified, double click on it. And now we can go back to the right side and we can put in Southside Organizing Center. Okay, and then just give me a 2-sentence description of the Southside Organizing Center.
Organization that provides community development and community organizing.
And is there a population that you serve specifically or mostly?
Serves the near south side of Milwaukee. And we have specific boundaries if you would want that too.
Yeah, actually, let's put that in.
Yeah, so the Menominee Valley on the north end to Oklahoma Avenue on the south end. First, I'll wait, sorry.
To where on the south?
Oklahoma Avenue on the south.
My son used to live on Oklahoma Avenue.
Nice. And then First Street on the east to Miller Parkway on the west. Or I guess Brewers Boulevard now. Recently, we know that changed because it's no longer Miller Park.
Right. Okay. There we go. All right. How about we name 4 more locations that are important? They can be commercial, they can be nonprofit.
Yeah, just for purposes of time, let's just do maybe 2 or 3, but it should be pretty quick. I would say, so also, you know, before you added in this specific point and you described this specific point, if we're going to do one of the near south side, for example, overall, where is the part where you do a description of your overall area?
So one of the things that I like to do is get 2 or 3 points in that area so that we make sure that we're getting the whole area.
Okay, so doing that first.
Yeah, so that's why it's kind of important to name some of the most important places when you're doing an urban area, because all of a sudden you can find yourself like, well, that's not really our community.
Yeah.
So that's why I like to start with this. So if we could get like 2 more.
Yeah, great. So I would say, just thinking about COVID and the ongoing pandemic, we could do 16th Street Community Clinic. It's typed like 16th is typed out in words. Oh, it showed up. Great.
Okay, so we'll go here. So 16th Street Community Clinic. Okay.
And so,
you know what, let's not do the descriptions, because I'm gonna make this a draft that you can update with more information. Great. So let's like do 2 more points and then we'll go over to the other thing.
But yeah, and then just so people can know why I would choose a point like this, I'll just say the description so it's quick, but that this is a clinic that, regardless of citizenship status, regardless of insurance, you can get access to healthcare and Spanish-speaking health resources too, right? So that's why that's a key part of the near South Side community. And then so another point we could do
Go ahead.
is we could do, let's do a school. So South Division. And this is a key location for the near South Side too, because it provides bilingual education. We know we have a lot of students that are Spanish speakers. And it's one of the biggest high schools in the city. Has also resources for families. And then
okay, one more.
Let's do a grocery store then. Cermak. Let's do Cermak. With a K.
Okay.
At the end. Yeah, do the one on Miller Parkway.
Okay.
So obviously this is important because it's access to fresh, healthy foods, and not just, like the typical corner store foods that show up in a lot of food deserts. And so this is like really what the map making consists of, is just thinking about important landmarks, businesses, organizations in your community that you frequent, and a lot of people in your community frequent, because that's like, those help show what creates your community, right? So knowing that we need Spanish speaking or Spanish resources for families in the near South Side, that's a key part of showing that this is our community of interest.
Exactly. Yeah, I could not have said it better. Thank you. So now we're back up here and we're using the paint tool. And when we look, we get, oops, let me not do the paint tool yet. Here are the places that we named. And so we're going to make sure that we start with, and this is SOC right here, right? So we're going to start with the ward that SOC is in. So this is coloring in that one ward, and then I'm going to assume that we're going to go over here and catch all of these.
Absolutely.
Okay.
See, and that, can you speak to that too? Because so we are a municipality of Milwaukee, right? But then West Milwaukee contains that dot. Would you say it's better to add that, even though it's a different municipality, versus not adding it?
I would say it's better to add it.
Okay.
If it's something that you feel is part of the community that should be represented by the same person, right?
Yeah.
So that it is like, there's a lot of interest, shared interest with the folks who live there. And now that's a really big one. So it doesn't have a whole lot of residential in it, because it's that large compared with some of these others, which you can tell are much more densely populated, because your wards have to have a population balance. They have to be approximately the same number of people. So you could decide that maybe you didn't want this one in there, just that it was on the edge of your area. Or if you feel pretty strongly that that's a pretty important place in your community that you want to keep in there, then so I could erase it if that feels,
No, I think it makes sense to keep.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to I'm going to zoom out a little bit and have you look at this and think about, okay, so you named Menominee Valley before, and you named Oklahoma's down a little further, right?
Right.
Should we start with this as the beginning community and then expand it out, or should we include those in your map?
Yeah, I would say that because the near South Side is it's a small area in terms of miles, but it's very densely packed, and many of those other tracks or areas that you can paint would share a similar population who would go to the same places that we named. So I feel like those should be highlighted then.
All right, so I'm going to highlight. Tell me when if I hit something that you think shouldn't be.
Yeah, I would say until the freeway on the right side there. You can do all of that down until basically the bottom of your screen. I would include that one too.
This one? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, is that about it, or should we get some of these others?
No, I think that's good.
Okay. All right.
You
So
could, that top right one, I think, should go to
this one?
No, a little lower to the right. That one.
This one?
That one, yeah.
Okay. All right. So now we are going to name this South Milwaukee, or the SOC organizing territory. How would you like to name this?
Yeah, south side. Let's do SOC territory.
Okay. And then,
and actually, now that I think about it, maybe that top right one shouldn't be in there, but this is just an example. So
well, we can easily take it out.
Yeah. Good.
Okay. So let's describe the SOC area.
Yeah, so kind of how I said before, just thinking about what makes this area share an interest is that, and I know that part of you had mentioned not to just mention race, right? Like what else connects a community? Right. Obviously, this area is primarily Latinx populated, but in that it means that people have interest in having access to Spanish-speaking resources, access to cultural foods, or cultural centers. It's also home to many different kinds of immigrants, not just Spanish-speaking immigrants. So having, a vested interest in having locations that serve immigrant populations regardless of status. I mean, there's so much you can say, right? I think just for time, we can leave it at that. But that's kind of where the direction that you want to go with the description, right? Like explain what unites people. I say this is a very working class area too. I know kind of income indicators can be a good thing to add. But it can be, if it's a decision whether or not you do a map or not do a map, don't let having a very descriptive like whole paragraph or essay be a deterrent, right? Like you can put a 2-sentence thing in there that explains how this community is a community, but don't feel deterred from doing one just because you want to have it be very detailed or you feel you have to put data and all of that, right?
You don't. You can. It's what makes it your community. That's what we want you to describe. So I'm going to show you now. I'm not going to actually submit this, but I'm going to show you how you would submit it.
Perfect.
And that way, Gabe, I'll make sure that you have the link for it and you can update it and actually submit it. But we're gonna pretend. I'm saving this to the clipboard, and I'm going to make sure that I put it in the chat to you so that you are able to look at it later. And then I'm going to say proceed to submit the map. And so it closed the window that we were in, or actually it went to a different window. And so we're going to call this the SOC territory.
And as she's filling this out, I do just want to mention that in the comment section, I put a sign-in sheet that if anyone watching wants to sign up to get like one-on-one help to create a map, please reach out to us or fill out that form and we'll reach out to you. But otherwise, go ahead and message us to any way you want to get in touch with us so that we can get some community maps submitted.
So now here's the other thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to come back to this map that I was in, and I'm going to copy the description so that I don't have to rewrite it. Right? And I'm just going to put it into that space. And notice that when we got over here, I called it the SOC territory of South Milwaukee, but when I got down to this part, it was already here. And you can see that we named one community with 4 places in it. I put in this information from our description. We're going to put some tags in like SOC, South Milwaukee.
So South Milwaukee is actually a different municipality. I would say South Side, maybe.
South Side. Milwaukee. Then we'll just put in Milwaukee.
For sure.
Come on, catch up. My computer's going slow. And then down here, we're going to put in Gabe and Gabe's email and etc.
Yeah.
And then we would have to check both of these, that you understand that your name and the map will be out there. You understand that your email's not going to be published. You're going to have people from the staff be able to contact you if they have questions. And then you would hit submit. Again, I am not hitting submit right now because we didn't actually finish the map.
Right.
Dave's probably going to add a few more comments on there. So
Absolutely.
that's the way you do it. It's really not hard, and it's important. It's really
and again, like we were on here for an hour, right? But because we're going through the whole process, but really, if you are comfortable with technology, you can do it in as quick as like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. And remember that 45 minutes of that was just me talking about the whole thing.
Exactly.
We've actually only been in this place into that map for 10 or 15 minutes.
Exactly. Well, Carlene, thank you so very much. We always appreciate having your knowledge and presence here. I'm really looking forward to people filling out that link that's in the comment section so we can reach out and help you submit your own map. We can submit it on your behalf as well. So if there's anyone out there watching that feels compelled to make a map, we really hope that you will. It will only help you have more fair political representation in your area. So hoping that people fill that out, and we'll also be reaching out to folks that we know are watching today too.
And just so you know, Gabe, there are folks who are willing to help with Spanish translation in doing these maps as well. So if you need help with that, just let us know.
Awesome. Well, thank you so very much.
You are very welcome. Thanks for the opportunity. And I'm sure I will see you again.
Yes, we will be in touch soon. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Again, thank you to Carlene for coming on. Please fill out the sign-in sheet that is in the comment section so we can reach out and help you submit your own map if you are willing. Again, it does not take that long, and you already have all the information because you live where you live and you know where you go and the important places around you. So please fill out that sign-in sheet, and thank you for being with us today, and we will be on with you tomorrow. I'll leave you with a video that promotes our survey.
Has this live forum been informative and useful to you? What part of the forum could be improved or changed to make it better? Please take our quick survey that's located in the comments section so that we can keep 3 o'clock with SOC going for residents. Thank you for tuning in.